In every story, there is a beginning, middle, and end. I sit in my writer's room with this knowledge in mind, a plot sketched out right in front of me, like a caseboard, placing the clues together in a cohesive fashion, and as I write and I write, new motivation and inspirations continue for my work. In my story, YouTuber Oh No It's Alex watched the Game Awards, completely flabbergasted as Alan Wake 2 wins Best Narrative over Baldur's Gate 3.
Wake 2.
What the fuck? Are you serious? Are you for real?
He screams and copes the entire time, the confusion and insecurities plaguing his brain. Get off the stage, you don't belong there, he shouts. Yet nothing was heard. It was behind a screen after all. That the more the night continues, he became a full-blown conspiracy theorist. He couldn't cope with one of the best stories in gaming history. Got that recognition. Something feels off. I write, and I still end up in the same spot as before, like a constant loop after loop non-stop. If it's just a screen, how can I have a voice to talk about this game? The dark presence. Scratch. It's coming for me. I can't let it win. If it's not a lake, it's an ocean, and the only option that I have is... No!
This is the ritual to make you all.
I was back in my writer's room again. Was that all a dream? Or did I end up in a loop again? Things start to feel more clear to me, like my eyes have finally been opened. I knew exactly what I was going to say before I even began writing. I looked at talking about this game all wrong, at the surface level. I need to go deeper, deeper than I ever have before. I will use my writing to be able to do so. It was then that I also realized the most important detail. It's not a screen. It's a door, and all doors have openings. I will use this to make my writing become reality. I have always been a champion for those who believe in creative expression. Excuse me. I have always been a champion for those who believe in the idea of creative expression, the ability to use their mind and imagination to create something that represents the individual, whether it's movies, TV shows, music, and of course, video games. Unfortunately, in the current gaming climate, there are very few out there that believe in this and treat the mediums like a money bank. However, there's always those select group of developers out there that believe in creative expression. One of those being the Finnish studio of Remedy. Founded in 1995, they've been known for making some of the craziest single-player games out there, from Max Payne to Alan Wake. As of recently, I decided to check out some of their previous work for the game that we are talking about today, specifically Alan Wake 1 and Control, to get a taste of what Remedy has done in the past. Originally, I was going to review Alan Wake 1, but after playing it to completion, while I did enjoy it, it didn't really scratch the itch that I was looking for. That was until I jumped right into Alan Wake 2, and not only did it scratch that itch, but it gave me the best back scratch that I have ever witnessed. To give an idea, Alan Wake 1, while yes, it had horror elements to it, it was first and foremost an action game, and it kinda suffered as a result. Alan Wake 2 is their first foray into the survival horror genre, and they may have created one of the best ones yet. But most importantly, this has Remedy's creative juices all over it. every aspect it feels just fully realized and displayed the way that Remedy intended. Having done 2 playthroughs of this game now, I will be explaining exactly why in detail to the best of my ability. But before I do, I must issue 2 full disclaimers. Number 1, for all the praises that I do give this game, I have to say this. Do not, I repeat, do not buy the PC port right now. Unless if you're running the best of the best that PC gaming has to offer, you're not going to have a good time with this game. Awful loading times all around, terrible audio desync, and just overall not a good port. A great friend of mine was just playing this on PC and was absolutely appalled by what was shown.
Why? Wow!
The station had changed. I was closer now.
Wow! Hey, what's up, Jacob? Welcome. What are they doing?
In the rain.
What?
Must not drink the water.
This game!
Which is a shame because on console, it was pretty much a neat, flawless experience. I did 2 playthroughs on the Series X with consistent performance, very little bugs. While I did encounter one game-breaking bug that thankfully didn't happen the second playthrough, it was a relatively solid performance on my side. Remedy's constantly updating the game, so hopefully the game will run in a better state, but for now, I say wait and see. Disclaimer 2. This video is going to contain a ton of spoilers. I've restructured this differently than I normally do. Whereas I would talk about each aspect of the game individually, the story, the gameplay, the world building, instead I'm going to be talking about both of the main sections of the game involving our 2 main characters. With that out of the way, let's go ahead, grab our flashlights, and head deep into the dark place. This is my love letter to... Our story begins with a murder, involving a big man with a lil ass coming out of Cauldron Lake seemingly out of nowhere. A group of deer people come in and have him play a game of knife play. As they take his heart, they get spotted and piss off. We then get introduced to our first few characters, Saga Anderson and Alex Casey, on their way to the site of the murder in Cauldron Lake. Thus begins Return, one of the main sections of this game that you will be playing throughout. You take the role of the detective in this section, looking around the murder site as well as the body for any clues as to what happened or who was involved. But to do that, you must tap into your mind palace in order to fully assess the situation. This is one of the main mechanics of the game aside from the combat, the mind place. A way for Saga to gather all evidence and be able to put it together in a cohesive fashion, complete with a map, a TV for commercials, a radio, and a caseboard. But for us, it's pretty much our main hub area outside of the game that players can explore and walk through rather than just having to scroll through a menu. Anyways, you gather up your clues from finding evidence, talking to people nearby, or in some other cases, profiling people within your mind place, and gather all the evidence in the caseboard in order to help progress and solve the case. I, for one, am in love with this system, because not only can you find specific clues for the main quest, but also for the small little side activities, as somewhat of a tracker that you can go back to later. But also it does a really good job with getting you immersed in the role of Saga. Saga having her own mind place allows for her to create cognitive processing in order to understand what's going on. Especially while, during the investigation, there's a random manuscript from a writer seemingly predicting what's about to happen or could happen in the future.
FBI Special Agent Robert Nightingale. And then there was the page they found. The first step down into terrifying depths.
Reading
the words.
These words felt like a message.
Felt like a message.
Someone knew they were here, someone playing a game with them. An invitation. How could they not accept
even if they knew it would end up hurting them.
You discover that the dead man is Nightingale, the cop that disappeared and now magically reappears dead after 13 years, and that this was done by the works of a cult, the Cult of the Tree. With this information in mind, you head back to the fictional town of Bright Falls, Washington. You go to the diner to talk to the other witnesses at the night of the murder, the both of them being a couple who were investigating Cauldron Lake as inspiration for the woman's book revolving around the disappearance of Alan Wake. You then profile the couple, gain the evidence you need, and then...
I don't know what you're talking about. It's me, silly. Rose. You know me. I don't think I do. And what horrible thing happened to my baby girl? She drowned. Your daughter. That's so weird you don't remember. How do you know I have a daughter? Oh, I know what this is. You're blocking out your traumatic memories. Happens on TV all the time. No. You're mistaking me for someone else. If you say so.
How strange. Nothing else weird though. Keep going. You then talk to the Sheriff Breaker and head to the morgue in order to gain more information and to look at the body for any further details. That's where things begin to get weird.
It's the same type of page we found at Cauldron Lake.
Nightingale hunted Saga. Didn't see her. The Taken could not see into bright light. Light hurt them, made them vulnerable. Nightingale had no heart, but here he was, killing.
Someone's created a fucked up fantasy about us.
Yep, totally not crazy in any conceivable way. Nightingale not only is walking around with no heart, but now is heading back to Cauldron Lake, so now we must head back there to find him and stop him. And since we got here, let's go ahead and dive right into the game's combat. Alan Wake 2's combat is essentially if you take the gameplay loop of Alan Wake 1 and change it for it to play more like a survival horror game as opposed to an action game, and the transition I'd say is surprisingly solid. Shooting feels effective, dodging feels better to use, and the flashlight feels more manageable to use as well. In the first game, pointing your flashlight at the enemy will lower their darkness shield, leaving them vulnerable to gunfire under a certain period of time, at the cost of a close to full usage of the flashlight's battery. This in turn gets tedious, as you'll be shining a light on an enemy, only if it's somehow not enough, you have to change the battery mid-fight. In Alan Wake 2, flashlight management is a way better and suitable usage as a concept. Flashlights have a certain amount of charges per battery that you can use. If you use a boost on the flashlight, that uses up one charge, which is more than enough to get rid of a Taken's darkness shield, in order to go and then just start blasting. Bang! Also, in Alan Wake 2, Taken have specific weak spots that if you shoot at, can do far more damage to them, and makes killing them go by faster. And also show some quite gruesome body damage done in the process. All this while you dodge incoming attacks and keep an eye on the amount of ammo and resources you have in order to keep yourself alive. Ammunition and resources can be a bit stingy on more than one occasion. You will feel that missed shot or poorly timed dodge. But luckily, not only are you given enough in order to survive the encounter that lies ahead, but also inventory is done in the same vein as Resident Evil 2 Remake, where you can move stuff around in order to avoid having to drop certain items. And when all else fails, your most valuable resource is light. Finding out where any light sources will be will greatly enhance your chance for survival, should you need to take a break from the chase. Or even better, find specific safe rooms in order to drop off any inventory into the shoebox and save your game for a quick coffee break. Anyways, you arrive back to Cauldron Lake to find Nightingale. You come across his heart by profiling him and finding it in a chest freezer and sending it over to the Witch's Ladle to open an area called the Overlap. a small area where reality and the dark place meet and both worlds connect and communicate. You used to find and take out Nightingale, and then we get this.
Who are you?
What is this? Who are you?
Hear me.
I'm Saga Anderson, FBI. I can hear you.
Cauldron Lake.
Yes, I'm at Cauldron Lake. Where are you?
How to escape? In danger. The dark presence.
Okay. I'm on board. This was the point where I instantly got hooked. The amount of intrigue before the characters utter so much as a word at times is jaw-dropping. A lot of the section with Saga is where you investigate and discover the underbelly of the dark place and how they are able to save Bright Falls as a result. But as it goes on, the story continues to change around her and her environment. Every time you complete a section, more of it opens up so that you can explore it more, and if you get to add clues to the caseboard, good news! It'll auto-input them for you after a certain period of time so you're not missing out. What I also love is the attention to detail in each of these locations. Bright Falls, Watery, and Cauldron Lake look absolutely stunning. It all tells a story right before the characters even say anything. The visual style should absolutely be praised and admired for. It's not very often where you have an ultra-realistic looking game come out with an art direction this good and this eye-catching. Even the facial animations are incredible and a step up from previous Remedy games. The visual directions also help tell Saga's side of the story as well, because things will change on a whim to where you have to question what's real and acknowledge what's not. She even has a case file called Fact vs. Fiction. One of my favorite parts is that Saga will find these nursery rhymes that if you take the dolls that match the nursery rhymes and put them together, parts of the world will change around you and you earn charms that you can equip to give Saga certain benefits. There's also puzzles you can do to unlock cult boxes, Alex Casey lunchboxes that hold manuscript pages that you can use to upgrade your guns, and cult packages that add more ammo and flares. The overlaps are also really fun and unique, and have some fun boss encounters with other characters. More on that later. One of my favorites in these sections is that you can listen to Alan type out his manuscripts that you find in the world. It's like listening to a very schizophrenic audiobook. Return with Saga Anderson is super cool, and we will get to more of the story as a whole later, but for now, it's time to talk about my favorite sections of the game. The ones involving everyone's favorite tortured writer, Alan Wake.
Well, our wait is over. Your new book, Initiation, hits the shelves tomorrow.
What?
Once the seed ends.
Initiation has us take the role of the game's namesake, Alan Wake. And by God, if you thought the craziness in Return was cool, that's only an appetizer to the entree that is the Alan Wake segments. They are easily the best part of the game, bar none. This is where Remedy's wackiness truly shines, and I appreciate it even more so. Using a bunch of tropes, but also an inversion of them, a usage of many different film techniques and camera work, there's a reason why I did the skit at the beginning. That's how much I love these sections. So let's talk about it. The main takeaway is that Alan has been trapped in the dark place for 13 years, and we are seeing how he navigates through it in order to try and escape. Each part of Initiation starts in a loop, and it's up to you as Alan to break that loop in hopes of finding a way to escape the dark place. It's also where we get to meet two of the best characters in the entire game ever, Warland Dorr and Ahti, the almighty janitor and the best singer on this earth. We'll talk about those two more later, but just know they're always a highlight. Initiation takes place in New York, or perhaps not New York. And let me tell you, the visual style is at an all-time high with here. The neon lights being the majority of your light source walking through across the city streets, the oppressive atmosphere that they provide, the ground clutter that's everywhere, all really sells how abandoned this location is and how lonely Alan is trapped within it. Between the subways, hotels, and even movie theaters, I got film noir vibes like something out of the Blade Runner or even Seven, and I was just constantly immersed. Most of exactly what happens in Return happens in Initiation. Combat is about the same, but instead of fighting the Taken, you face something far worse. Your own shadow. These shadows appear in the dark place across the entirety of Initiation, and what makes them so unique and creepy is how random they can be. The shadows can disappear by just shining the light on them, or by using the boost to make the process faster. But what if some of them, I don't know, wanted to make their presence known? What if they just managed to pin you down despite the others not being able to touch you physically? That's what makes them so creepy. They are everywhere, can attack you at any time depending on where you look, and even whisper Alan's name back to you. Not only does this sell the survival horror vibe they're going for with this title, but it also serves as a reason that you need to be prepared for anything, and keep your resources tight-knit and always be aware of your surroundings. The game really sells on how dangerous the dark place is and how you need to navigate it, which is why they give you specific tools outside of the Allen staples like the revolver, shotgun, flares, and flashbangs. You gain 3 tools to use at your disposal in order to navigate deeper into the dark place. These include Echoes, the Angel Lamp, and the Plot Board. The Writer's Room replaces Saga's Mind Place, in which you can access this plot board. Echoes and the plot board work intertwined with one another, as with each echo you find and look into, not only do we see more of Alex Casey in this world, but we also gain inspiration in order to then use the plot board to do this.
The new story beat fit the story perfectly.
That's right, the room changed based on what Alan wanted. This approach to puzzle solving is so unique and immersive that it's the part I'm always looking forward to. You use the environment to your advantage in these parts. The Angel Lamp serves a similar purpose, but by capturing light within the lamp, a new section of the area opens or closes depending on where you are. Light? Haha, cringe. You basically have to play a game of keep away with the light in these sections in order to progress. I find that amazing, because whereas the story would change around you as you progressed in Return, now as Alan, you take control. And man, these sections are so fun. And of course, these have their fair share of side content as well. While Return has you collecting nursery rhymes scattered about by Falls and Watery, you find words of power drawn on the walls that you give abilities like adding a charge to your flashlight, restoring more health by using your flashlight, extra damage, etc. So that you have a reason to keep exploring. But by far, the best part of Initiation is the live action segments. Remedy has always tried to mix in-game with live action to merge between the two, and they managed to get it just right here in Alan Wake 2. The way these are shot and lit up is so well put together, it's all a joy to behold. Seeing the flesh and blood actors on screen acting this out just hits differently than a normal in-game cutscene would.
What's the problem, Alan? Because on more than one occasion, you voiced your reservations about the adaptations.
It's not that. They're their own thing. They've gone with choices that are different from mine. I feel protective about my stories, and these adaptations... I don't know. I guess I just wish I could have been more involved in making them.
The best and perfect example, and you know exactly which one I'm talking about, is this one.
What the hell?
From what I've gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with mama's pretty stories and your own made-up fury.
The musical section, otherwise known as Herald of Darkness, lives rent-free in my head, constantly. It is so goofy, so silly, so cheesy and fun that it is just a joy to watch it all unfold. Not only that, but it also serves as a recap to the first game, while also creating something fresh and fun that to me is still one of the best sequences ever in gaming. Initiation is such a wonderful ride that I always do these missions first, as you can play both sections of the game in any way that you want anyway. Between its clever puzzle solving, visual storytelling, usage of the environment, the haunting atmosphere, all while maintaining a fun combat loop in between, and you get Initiation. It's also known for having one of the craziest game over screens I have ever seen in quite a while. Want to see something scarier?
It was, I saw a trailer for it. I didn't care. Why? Because I am not interested in a game about a novelist who can't finish a book, right? How pathetic is that? That this guy has a career doing one thing, writing books, and can't seem to do it. How pathetic are you, bro? Like...
Now that I've been able to talk about both sections, the stage is set to talk about Alan Wake 2's story. This story is a monster, and monsters wear many faces. Now that I've laid the foundation, it's time to talk about this behemoth of a story that Remedy has created. Like I mentioned before, this is going to contain a ton of spoilers. You've been warned. If you couldn't tell by now, the main takeaway with this game is that it's telling one story but from two different points of view and two main characters. One is of a mother who gets wrapped up in a horror story that she doesn't fully understand, while her family gets wrapped up in it as well, so she must find a way to get out and save both of those that she loves. While the other is about a writer who's been cooped up in the writer's room for too long in order to push back against the darkness that wishes to consume Bright Falls. Scratch, the main antagonist. His influence is found all across the game's story, whether it's behind the scenes or up close. His influence is all there and present. Saga and Alan make for the bulk of this game's story, as they both have to evidently work together to take on Scratch and the Dark Presence, as well as saving those who have been affected and had their stories change as a result. You will meet plenty of characters along the way, some old and new faces. Some of the major constant standouts are Rose and the Andersons, Tor and Odin. They help you quite a lot along the journey and even have some pretty cool connections with Saga. The Andersons, for one, being actual relatives to Saga, which leads to cool little details, like how Saga is actually a seer, a person with a special ability inherited from their family that allows to tell when someone's telling the truth or not, hence the profile that she's been able to do. There are so many callbacks to the previous games that it does lead to the main question. Should you need to play the original Alan Wake in order to understand 2? Well, yes and no. Yes, as you'll be able to understand the callbacks and references and more, and no, because it's not really necessary, as there's plenty of a recap that'll help you understand and be able to catch up with what's going on. Things like the clicker, certain characters mentioned among other things, which then leads to the confirmed connection with the Remedy universe. For a long time, there were theories about whether or not each of their games were connected or not. Control set the ground up for potential connections, and now it's fully confirmed with Alan Wake 2. There's quite a lot of references to Control layered across the game that it's best to have at least played Control as well before jumping in. Certain terminologies from Control are used here, and the FBC's involvement in the story is far bigger than I had expected. Then there's also the cultural aspect of the world that Alan Wake has as well. The town of Watery, for one, is founded by Finnish immigrants, and a lot of their culture is beautifully displayed here, along with their connections with the Norse pantheon of gods, that I won't spoil too much here. The one character that I will say continues to remain a mystery is Warland Dorr. We don't see him very often, but when we do, he's such an enigma. However, there is this theory going around that he might potentially be Saga's father. It is said that Saga never really met her dad, and that he had apparently disappeared, so there's still a possibility with that. There's not a whole lot of evidence, unfortunately, but there is one particular line of dialogue that does add some levity to the conversation.
Alice. I need to get to her. She's in danger.
She is. Because of you. And so is someone important to me, someone you pulled into this. You keep opening doors, peeking in, reaching through to get what you want, and that puts you in my path.
I mention a lot here, but for me, the story's biggest takeaway is how much better Alan Wake is as a character. So much of his character arc is involving him getting out of the dark place, and how, as that continues, he dives deeper and deeper into the inescapable rabbit hole of insanity. And also, I have to say, Matthew Peretta and Ilka Villi playing the character of Alan Wake are such a dynamic duo together and have just brought so much life to this character that I honestly wish they were given more recognition. Yeah, Melanie does a great job as Saga as well, but I just enjoyed these two much more. Anyways, one attention to detail here is that as the story progresses, Alan's hair and face becomes more and more messy and unkempt, further showcasing how draining this must have been for him, all while he's trying to help his wife and take down the dark presence. There are occasions where he'll misremember things and also remember things differently, but thinks that it was Scratch who did it, falling further and further down the rabbit hole. Alice Wake, Alan's wife, also plays a big role in the story, as we see how she's wanting to try and save Alan from the dark place, but as it progresses, we see how much worse it becomes. It all culminates into one of the most heartbreaking segments in the entire game, which is right here.
I can't keep going like I have been. It's time for a perspective shift. To go from photographer to subject. From artist to art.
Then there's also the connections with Alex Casey, and let me try and explain this the best way that I can. Alex Casey is modeled after the game's director, Sam Lake, and is also named after the other Alex Casey in Alan Wake's books, who also takes place in the dark place as Alan's inspiration. And he is also voiced by James McCaffrey, who is the voice of Max Payne, and just... do you see now why this game is so good and crazy? Now, from this point on, I will be talking specifically about the climax and the ending, so This is your last warning to avoid spoilers when you can. Okay, here we go. So, there is a lot going on here. If you want the full details of the plot itself, I recommend a video by Gaming Harry, as he could explain it far better than I ever could. It's very long, but well worth the time put in. But for now, I will try and explain it as much as I can. So all signs point to getting the clicker to Alan Wake so that he can rewrite the ending of Return, be able to save Saga's family and the town of Bright Falls. But before they could, Scratch manages to make his presence known.
There it is. We've been waiting for you, motherfucker. I'm gonna fucking destroy you. Yeah.
With Scratch now let loose, and you still having the clicker, the only chance they have left is to rescue Alan from the dark place. Cause while Alan was still present here in the real world, he was also for some reason still connecting to Saga through the dark place and the overlaps. So Saga gathers the FBC and some of the old gods of Asgard in order to bring Alan back the only way they know how. From the power of rock and roll. Scratch arrives during this, and they gather as much light pointed at him as much as possible, resulting in leaving Alan's body, but instead taking over the body of Alex Casey, throwing Saga into the lake, and Bright Falls is consumed by the dark presence. All that is left is for Alan to combat this himself, much like he did in 2010. What follows is what I consider to be one of the best cutscenes in the entire game.
I brought Saga Anderson into this story to help me escape. She succeeded. It cost her everything. I'd used Alex Casey in my writing for years. The real Casey had been drawn here because of that. Now he was a victim too. Saga, Casey, Alice, all this horror originates from me. It's my fault. Scratch had to be stopped. I've driven down this road before. Another way to look at it, I had brought the dark place here with me. I never had gotten out. Maybe after this I finally could. It was a fool's hope. I had no choice. I had to do it. That didn't make me any less terrified. Fuck it.
As he walks inside, we see Deerfest centered around Return. He grabs a copy of this book, heads to his writer's room with the help of our boy Ati to finally write the ending. As this goes on though, we get to one of the best moments for Saga. She's trapped in what looks like her mind place, and the case files goes missing in exchange for moments like this.
See, and it's my fucking fault. I'm a terrible mother. I let my daughter die. I'm a failure. This is what I deserve.
This is where I began to realize that technically there is no real bad guy. Yes, there is the dark presence in Scratch, sure, but after this segment, I saw the dark place and the dark presence far more differently than before. And the more that I thought about it, it's actually pretty brilliant because ultimately this entire story can be seen as an allegory for the importance of mental health. Scratch isn't really a flesh physical villain, it's actually just Alan, as they are both the same person. Every dark part of Alan's psyche is seen in Scratch, and in the previous scene, it showed that he isn't really fighting Scratch, he's fighting himself.
I had seen this before. This was not Scratch. This was me. caught in a loop. I had stopped myself trying to fix the manuscript. I was the one haunting Alice. It was always me. I killed her.
And in this moment, Saga is constantly being told about how she's a terrible mom, terrible partner, awful detective, etc. When in reality, all it is just the dark place taking some of her deepest, darkest feelings and intrusive thoughts and having it come off as true. And in some cases it is, but Saga doesn't see that as a negative, but rather as more of a reason to keep pushing forward and doing better. The dark place is just nothing more than the darkest parts of your mind, and if you let it take hold of you, it'll ultimately consume you. I mean, look at what happened to Alan for close to 13 years. Now, he and Saga have a chance to escape this hell and finish Return. These two are easily the backbone of the story as they work together to bring it home.
I can't do this alone. Every time I write, things only get worse.
You beat this thing back in 2010, Alan. And here you are doing the same again. You're a hero too. We're in this together.
Saga is such a great addition, and I'd love to see more of her after this. And now, all that's left is the ending. And after beating New Game Plus, here's the definitive ending.
Alan?
Saga, I finished it. The ending we talked about.
I have the clicker and the bullet of light. Let's do this. I have to be the one to do it.
I see it clearly now. This part at least. Okay. We have met here before. Time loops in the dark place. Every choice you make affects everything that comes before and after you make it.
He's here.
Like it does when you change a detail in a story you're writing.
Casey?
The end. Scratch! Now!
When the bullet of light blew the darkness out of the crater in my skull, the dark presence was born from the remains, feeding on the horror around it to grow. Into me, influenced me. I was lost in my work. The link was severed when I finished Return, but the dark presence was hungry for more. And I was missing the small part of myself that it had been born from. Alice, love is strange. Even apart, we're still together in our memories. We put each other through hell to set us free. Again and again. Different versions of us. Alice helped me get there, where I wanted to be. It has taken so long. The process to change reality is so delicate, to be true in just the right way and still find a way past our flaws. So many drafts, so much on this journey to finally arrive here.
Is it over? Anderson.
Logan? Logan! Are you alright?
I had a terrible nightmare. Can you come home, Mom?
Oh, baby. It's over now. You're alright. I'm here. I'm on my way home. I love you. She's alright.
scratch is gone.
At last.
Thank you, my love. And so I return. With me I bear the torch of knowledge, the light, the miracle illuminated, the master of two worlds. No, the master of many worlds.
Such a nice little conclusion that wraps it all up into a nice neat bow, but also leaves the door open for more. Alan Wake 2's story has a lot more than I lead on. I want y'all to experience the rest of it yourself as well. This story is best when you do so, and I know I spoiled a lot of it, but it was impossible to talk about it without spoiling it. I haven't even talked about the music at the end of each chapter. They're all really good songs as a break from the main game. Alan Wake 2 is one of those games where it has a story where you want to know more so you can dissect, decrypt, and discuss, and come up with your own conclusion. And that's Alan Wake 2, folks. A game that honestly hit a lot closer to home than I anticipated with the messages that it provides. Its combat is solid, the atmosphere and the survival horror elements are all blended very well, and its story is such a breath of fresh air. This is the kind of creative expression that I am talking about. The amount of passion on display in every conceivable area is something the industry needs more of. But most importantly, this shows to me how far Remedy has come from their previous ventures, and I am nothing but happy for them. There is a lot less creativity in this space as of late, and a game like this continues to reinvigorate my hope that there are those who care. Sam Lake at the Game Awards said it best.
We can pull into different directions and nothing comes out of it. But when more than 100 people believe in the same vision and build something out of it, we can make miracles. We can make art, and we can be more than the sum of our parts. Our world today could use a bit more of that.
Wholeheartedly agree with this, which is why I am recommending this game on console. Not PC, until it's fixed, but console. And it also frustrates me because not only is it locked to the Epic Game Store, but it's also a digital-only release. But despite all that, the game seems to be selling well, which makes me happy, and I can't wait to see what other doors they open for the future. And that is my love letter to Alan Wake 2.